All right, we should be live. Good evening, everybody. We're getting our act together here. We'll get started in just a minute. Glad you were able to join us tonight. We'll let some folks join us here, and we'll get started in a minute. So, what do you guys think about the Death Ridge that's moving in? It's a bit first blast of summer.
Yeah.
Not excited.
I don't know that it's going to be as bad as we've had in the past, but I think it's one of those things. It's been so cool so far this summer that it's probably going to feel just absolutely horrid in the next few days.
Yeah, I agree with you. Could be.
I'm just glad I'm only 2 weeks away from having baby number 3. My wife especially is.
Yes, these last couple of weeks could be rough. She's had it pretty good though this summer. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, 1 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
2010, 2011, that was the wrong time.
For sure. For sure.
I think the Tiger basketball team has fallen victim to the Canadian Death Ridge. Good grief.
They're not doing so well tonight, huh?
82-50 in the third quarter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Not a word from you there, Daniel.
Philip Scrub apparently can shoot.
Sounds like somebody that needs to be in the NBA.
That's what Jason Smith said. He's got 29 tonight, I think it said.
Oh,
Had 35 the other night.
Wow.
I think Patrick dropped out.
Okay. I'm still trying to get logged into WeatherBell. I keep going back and forth, and it says it's not letting me log in. I have all my graphics on there. Try this again. Log in. Log in. Oh. Is this a cache thing? Something is... I didn't give him enough cash.
It's all right. I got to remember that one.
Oh, this is crazy.
There's a couple different spots you can log in from. Do you try the other one?
Shit,
Like
I'm just going to the models page and then clicking log in at the top, and usually I just click the models and it goes right back in and I'm in, and this is not doing that.
Try it from the, like before you go to the models page, try it on that screen. Maybe it'll let you in there.
Okay. All right, I'm on the actual login page where I type in my username and password, hit login, and now it says log out, so I should be in. I've lost, yeah, Patrick says it's running his CPU up to 100%. Okay, every time I go to the models page after I've logged in, I now see a login link at the top. Shoot. Technical difficulties. Let's see.
I
Maybe
see
I could just...
18Z GFS has us at 102 next Tuesday.
Nice.
Yeah, Ryan Vaughn just tweeted out that he's been looking over some stuff and thinks we'll be at 90 plus for the next 15 days, and mostly dry.
I wouldn't doubt that.
Yeah.
All right, let me try and invite Patrick again. Let's see. Here. If you're joining us, we will get started here in just a minute or so. Working through some technical things here.
I see Span is out on the attack for the
Oh,
hurricanes
that's right.
threatening the Gulf states.
Oh, nice.
Strong concerns with this system.
All right, I'm going to the backup plan for the models, unfortunately, here. I'm going to have to go to the trusty inset page. North America. 18Z, and I'm going to do the 18Z blind. I haven't looked at it. We'll see what happens. Let's see how this works. Yeah, that'll work. Patrick's going to try a different browser. In the meantime, William, I'll have you kind of live tweet for a little bit until Patrick joins us, if you would. And I think we'll go ahead and get started. So I think we got some of our technical issues worked out. We'll got one more that's hopefully going to join us here in a little bit. Another intern of ours, but good evening. My name is Eric Procius. I am a meteorologist at MemphisWeather.net. This is a WX Chat live chat for Google Plus Hangouts tonight. It's been a long time since we've done one of these, about 4 months. Usually we do these on a weather-driven basis, so if there's going to be a severe weather outbreak or something, then we will we'll bring you one of these and kind of run through the latest model data and so forth, and just give you some behind the scenes on what we're looking at and the kind of things that we're expected to play out. We've got a little bit of that tonight with the Canadian Death Ridge, as some call it, moving over the area in the next week or so. But it does look like we're going to get very hot. We'll talk about that a little bit. Also want to spend a little bit of time tonight talking about some severe weather things related to policies and procedures around Shelby County that you'll want to know about. SPC changes that are forthcoming in October. And we'll obviously throw in a little bit of discussion about social media and so forth, and how that's used during severe weather and how we use it here at MWN. And we'll also have a couple of other topics to discuss, and obviously throw it open to anybody who's got questions and so forth. It's going to be interactive, so we invite you to join along and send us your questions if you've got them and are on Twitter. You can tag those with the WXChat hashtag. If you're following on our MemphisWeather.net regular website, there's a chat window there that you can use to ask your questions or throw in comments. We'll be happy to throw those on here and entertain those as well. And so I want to start off by introducing the guys that are with us tonight, some regulars that you've seen if you've been with us before. William, our intern down in Mississippi State. How you doing, William?
Hey, I'm good.
How's classes getting settled in pretty well down there? You've been back, what, a week and a half or so now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, classes just started yesterday, so.
Oh, that's right.
Back in the swing.
Good. And you got some meteorology classes to challenge you this semester?
Mm-hmm. A few of those.
Excellent. Yeah, I remember those days. That's fun stuff. It's all worth it once you get out. Glad that you're joining us tonight. John Maddox, not an unfamiliar face to those who have joined us here before as well. Welcome back to WX Chat.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. We've been enjoying this cool summertime weather, but the Tiger Football Fan Fest is Saturday, and if that's any indication, it's going to be ridiculously hot, as it was last year. So we're ready for football season, and I got a feeling we'll be sitting in the heat when the Tigers kick things off in just a little bit over a week.
Excellent. And this year, the basketball team beat them to it, and have gotten their first taste of a live stream from Canada, so excited about that coming up too. But yeah, it's getting towards football season. Good deal. And Daniel Gafford, good evening, sir. How are you tonight?
I am doing wonderful. I'm kind of expecting there to be an ice storm, because that's the only time I've been on here before.
Well, we're glad to have you back.
It's the Ice Water Challenge. That's what it is.
Yeah, and we will not be doing that tonight on this episode. Yeah, you've been with us. You're right, when we did we had the Ice Storm show back in I guess it was late January or February. So glad to have you back tonight. We'll do the opposite end of the thermometer, and we'll talk about the heat tonight. So thanks for being with us. And we'll hopefully get Patrick back here in a little bit. I'm going to kind of keep an eye on my phone and see if he is able to join us. He was having some technical issues. He's also MWN intern. You've seen the PLs on the tags, PL tag on our tweets and Facebook posts, and that's Patrick, also a Mississippi State student. And Patrick and William are both well along and doing well, and have all the confidence in the world that what they're putting out there is good stuff on our social media feed. So appreciate those guys doing that. So I think what we'll do to get started here is first we're going to talk some current weather, and I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to talk a little bit about this big heat wave that we've got coming here over the next several days. We're starting to get a little bit of a taste of it today, but we're going to definitely be warming up as we go into the rest of this week and into next weekend. And possibly quite further past that, actually. It's been a rather cool and mild summer. In fact, July was the 6th coolest July on record in 140 years of records here in Memphis. It was just slightly cooler by monthly average than the month of June, which is pretty unusual, actually. But here we are in mid-August, and the kids are back in school. Football's kicking into session, and so now it's time to talk about heat. So I just want to give you a little look at some of the data that we're looking at that has a pretty good handle on how this is going to all unfold. We've only hit 95 degrees once this summer. That was back in June, if I'm not mistaken. And usually we've got many, many more days of 95 since between June and July and up into August. It looks like that one-day streak is going to be broken here in the next couple of days, because we're looking at 95-degree temperatures or higher, 95 to up to 100, starting tomorrow and going into the weekend. What I'm showing up here on the screen is basically look at the atmosphere at about 18,000 feet. This is what we call the 500 millibar chart in meteorology. We're looking at that 18,000 foot level. The black lines that are on here are lines of constant pressure, or isobars, and they show us where there are dips in those, or valleys. Those are low pressure at that level, at the 500 millibar level, and areas where there's hills, like is right down here by Memphis. That's what we call a ridge of high pressure. And so as the ridge of high pressure builds overhead, we get high pressure means generally sinking air and no storms and warm temperatures. And so this area of high pressure is going to be building over the area. So this is actually during the day today, and I'm going to step this forward, and if you'll watch right down here around Memphis, you'll see right now we're sitting basically right at the 588 line. That's just kind of a reference point for us. That's tomorrow morning. But as we go through, you'll see that 588 line lift to the north, and right in there, 594 line, that's even higher pressure. So this area down here is a great big ridge of high pressure, and it is centered just about directly down the Mississippi Valley as we go into tomorrow night. And you'll see as I go through here into Thursday, into Friday, there's that 594 circle basically right over us. This is a massive ridge of high pressure. This is Friday morning. And basically all of the weather that occurs goes over the tops of these ridges. So here's a big trough or a valley out here on the west coast, and a big ridge over the eastern U.S. That is exactly flip-flop from what we have experienced most of this summer. And actually not all that unusual to see this sort of a pattern more in the summertime than what we've had. So the cooler weather is under the trough, and the rainier weather is going to be out there, and then the ridge signifies the high pressure overhead. And I'll just step this through the weekend. That's Saturday, that's Sunday, and you see there's really very little change. This ridge is just extending all the way into southern Canada. And now we're out into late Monday next week, and it's still holding. And we see a little interesting fly in the ointment down here in the Gulf, and that is an area of low pressure. And actually what the GFS is picking up on there is a tropical disturbance of some sort the middle of next week. But you see we still are well entrenched in this high pressure ridge. So this hot weather is going to continue for a while. And just to get everybody all excited, we'll go ahead and take this out, and that looks like some sort of a landfalling tropical system next Thursday, middle of the day. Now, this is voodoo magic way out here. The GFS likes to crank these things out and scare everyone that's looking out a week in advance at model data. So that is not our forecast. It does not necessarily agree with all the rest of the models, although some of them do have some sort of a tropical disturbance down in the Gulf or Caribbean middle of next week. Time will tell on what exactly goes on with that. But our case here is that we definitely have a strong ridge of high pressure right overhead. I'll show one more map here that will go with that, and this is the jet stream level. We're looking up at about 34,000 feet, and you'll notice at the beginning of this period, this is today, basically tonight, we've got a slight bit of troughing over our region up at 34,000 feet with the ridge out to the west. As I advance this forward, you'll notice that ridge builds right over the central part of the country, and the jet stream is going to be going up here basically along the U.S.-Canadian border. So as long as the jet stream stays up there, we get no major weather systems to move through. That ridge is continuing to hold on, and I am down now into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. The jet stream stays well to our north. We're under the ridge. And so what that results in is something that looks like our forecast right here. 96 for tomorrow, 97 on Thursday, heat indices up close to 105, and then into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, upper 90s all the way into Monday. I decided to make it a tad less hot on Tuesday in the mid-90s, but that's only because that ridge is starting to break down just a little bit. It's still going to be very, very hot. So that's what we're looking at for the next several days. We're going to want to make sure that everyone is practicing their heat safety tips. If you are an outdoor worker and have gotten used to this summertime weather that we've had, you're going to definitely feel it over the next week, because we have not had a string of weather like this yet this summer. So make sure you're getting plenty of water, other non-alcoholic beverages, taking your light-colored clothing, wearing that, and just make sure you're checking on folks that don't have air conditioning or that might have asthma or other issues where they just need to be monitored. So that's what we're looking like, guys. What are your thoughts? This is kind of the first big one of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get some pop-up thunderstorms, it looks like.
Yeah, that's usually, we're waiting for that kind of stuff during these days just to provide a little bit of relief. Unfortunately, a lot of times that just adds humidity to the equation, and you end up with heat indices that end up in the heat warning type criteria, 110 or higher. But yeah, it looks like mostly sunny to partly cloudy days all the way through that period. I'd be real surprised to see much of any pop-ups. And it's getting pretty dry out there too, John. I don't know about out your way. You've had a little bit more rain, but I think it's pretty dry out there.
Well, not at my house actually. It seems like I've built your snow dome that works so well to keep snow away from Memphis. I'm apparently utilizing it here in my neighborhood to keep the rain away, and it's working really well. So, but yeah, it's going to be important, I think, for folks, like we talked a little bit off air, that we've been really cool this summer, and it's been really dry, and it's just been very, we've actually had a lot of rain. It's been very cool, a lot of cloudy days. So it's going to be dangerous over the next week with the heat, and it's going to be important for folks to, you can't let it catch you off guard, because we've been so comfortable. So, you've got to take those heat precautions. I was looking, a lot of the kids are going back to school, a lot of football practice starting up. So, make sure, the Tennessee Secondary School Athletic Association has an official heat policy. If it's heat index is over 105, they pull the kids off the field. 100 to 104, they start no helmets, things like that. So just important, if you're outside, what's been comfortable up until the last week or so is probably not going to be as comfortable the next few days. So just kind of be prepared for it.
And as that humidity, if it stays up too, now the long-range forecast for the dew points during this period does show them relaxing just a little bit, so maybe we won't see humidity quite as high. The only thing that's going to do is allow the low temperatures overnight maybe to get down to the semi-comfortable range, maybe the mid-70s in the early morning. But with the sun beating down, and with a lot of places not having much rain over the last month, the ground is pretty dry too, and so that promotes additional heating. And when we had some hot days back in June, we didn't get as hot as we could have, and as a lot of the models projected, because we'd had so much rain that the ground was wet, and it's just harder to heat that surface. And so that's why we really have only hit 95 once this year. But I think with the last month of dry weather that we've had, we're going to have a lot better chance with the dry ground in many areas to really get that temperature up. Hopefully that will help the heat indices by the moisture content being down just a little bit. But when we don't get cool overnight, then the next day feels even worse. I'm going to share our heat safety tips here and just remind everybody as we go through. Limit outdoor exposure. Make sure you slow down, take frequent breaks. Light-colored, loose-fitting clothing, obviously sunscreen and so forth if you're working outdoors. Caffeine intake can retard the cooling effects as well. So water, Gatorade, those types of things are best. Keep an eye on those pets that are out there. A lot of folks want to make sure that that you got water out for the pets. That water is not sitting in the sun where it's going to get hot. Give them a cool place to be and plenty of water. And we always want to make sure, and it always is a topic during the summertime. We see it, unfortunately, once is too many, but you cannot leave pets or children in the car for any period of time. It just does not take any time at all with the windows rolled up to heat that car up to just dangerous levels, 100, 110, 120 very, very quickly. And remember that all these temperatures are taken in the shade as well. So if you're out in direct sunlight, you are not feeling the 95 degrees that may be on the thermometer. You're more likely in the 100 to 105 or even 110 range in direct sunlight. So we'll hopefully that will help everybody to remember how to act during these days, and we'll get through it. And before we know it, September will be here. We'll be kicking off football season, and things will start to get better, especially overnight. So get a little bit cooler, and the mornings will feel better. You guys got anything else before we move on to? I want to hand it over to Patrick here.
We're not excited in Starkville about the heat wave either. Just got to throw that out there. We're probably going to be even worse off. So.
And you will probably have a little more humidity down there, I would guess, too.
Yeah, one more thing. We were talking about the cars earlier and kids and all that in the back seat. And if you have to, like me, park your car out in the sun during the day, crack your windows. The car doesn't get it's not nearly as uncomfortable to jump on a leather seat when the windows have been cracked and what little bit of air movement is moving. So just, not much chance of rain, so just leave your windows cracked and don't wear shorts if you have leather seats. Just, public service announcement.
And there's your tip of the day from John Maddox. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Patrick. He did a blog for us a couple of weeks ago. Interesting kind of short little study on the cool weather in July and what that might signal for the wintertime. Kind of came up with some interesting results. So I'm going to let him talk for a minute here, and you can find that at blog.MemphisWeather.net, and then just scroll down a little bit. You'll find the blog about that topic. Patrick, you with us?
I think we lost him.
He was on a minute ago. He dropped off. Okay, never mind. Anyway, go back and check out that blog. Actually, some of the interesting things he found was there was a little bit of a correlation between some of the hotter summers and some of the some of the cooler Julys and some of the snowier winters. A very loose correlation. It wasn't a real in-depth study, but we did look at the top 6 or so coolest Julys and compare those to the winters following. And a couple of the snowiest winters happened to follow a couple of the cooler Julys. So kind of interesting how that works out. So I want to switch gears then and talk a little bit about some severe weather changes that are coming up. And for those of you that are listening from the city of Memphis, there is a policy change that's going to be made in the future. Not ready to pull the trigger on that yet as far as the Office of Emergency Management is concerned. They're the ones that are responsible for the Siren Policy in Memphis. But many of you know, if you're living especially in the suburbs, Bartlett, Collierville, and Germantown, now all three have changed their siren policies in the last year or a little bit more than that, and are only sounding their sirens when a tornado warning is in effect for any part of their municipal boundaries, inside their municipal boundaries. And so that means that if you've got a tornado warning that covers the northern part of Shelby County, then Germantown and Collierville will not sound their sirens, and Bartlett will only sound their sirens if it touches one of their city borders. And they're doing that because Bartlett, Collierville, and Germantown all sound their own sirens from their municipalities. The City of Memphis also sounds their own sirens now as well, and then everyone else outside of that, from Millington up around to Lakeland and Arlington and unincorporated areas of Shelby County, are under the purview of the Shelby County I want to call it Homeland Security, but that's probably not right. Office of Preparedness, I think. So those areas still have a basically all county policy where if any part of Shelby County is under a tornado warning, all of those sirens in Shelby County outside of Bartlett, Collierville, and Germantown are sounded. The City of Memphis is getting ready to change that policy. I was at a meeting back a couple of months ago where they were working and basically demonstrating some of the software they're going to use, and we will have a blog on this in the near future. But for the City of Memphis, they're going to go to a sectorized approach, basically, where their sirens are going to be driven by the software that basically overlays the audio range of each of the sirens that are in Memphis and in the City of Memphis with the tornado warning polygons as the National Weather Service issues them. And basically, if you are within the polygon, a siren within your range will sound, and if you are not within the polygon or the siren does not reach, the audio signal does not reach within the polygon, that siren will not sound. And so it's actually a fairly progressive type approach especially for a major large city that's hundreds of square miles basically in coverage to go this direction. It's much easier for smaller towns and so forth to go that way, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It's a kind of a brand new system that's being that they're working with, and I think it provides a lot of promise, and it's actually the way things should be done as far as we're concerned, because there's really the warning polygons that are put out by the National Weather Service are updated as the storms move and so forth. The polygons nearly all of the time, near 100% of the time when a polygon is out, the storm is within that polygon, and if it starts to, it makes a turn, they're adjusting the polygon for that. They're canceling out the backside after the storm moves past, and so it makes sense to sound the sirens only within the threat area rather than warning an entire county. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. I'll definitely have more information in a blog very soon on that topic. But what do you guys think? Is this the right way to go, or is there what are your concerns?
I think it's the right way to go. I think there's been enough studies and social scientists who say that it's important to get the warning, but it's important not to be overwarned. And if the siren is sounding for Bartlett and the warning is for Collierville, that's just taking action that's not needed. And then when it is, you just the feedback loop of nothing happened, I'm not going to do anything, and then when it finally does, then you did nothing and you regret it.
Yeah, I agree with Daniel. I think that it's important that, the Weather Service has heard the cries of many over the years, many broadcast mets, and just many in the, and technology has helped too, that, overwarning is almost, and to me in some cases almost as bad as not warning at all, because people get very complacent. Tornado didn't hit my neighborhood, so it wasn't bad. Why are you on television, talking about a tornado? And the sirens are the same thing. But the only caution I would have is for folks is, it's really funny that we talked to somebody about this the other day. We use smartphones. We're on a video chat right now, but a lot of people rely on a 1930s technology to determine their family's safety in the event of severe weather. And, we rely on technology for so many other things, banking and everything else, and again, like this, but yet we rely, we're wondering about a siren that was built not even really for the weather purpose. It was built as an air raid siren. So, it's just, to me, just make sure you've got multiple ways of getting warnings and don't just rely on the siren. The siren is really only for people who are outside at the time the storm hits. But it's definitely a step in the right direction, because there's nothing worse than watching weather on TV when there's a tornado, and if it's Channel 3, you can hear the sirens going off downtown, and like Daniel said, the storm's in Collierville, and so people get confused and they don't know, well, am I under the warning, am I not? So it's definitely a huge step in the right direction, and hopefully we can actually be kind of a thought leader on this. As you said, Eric, it is unusual for a city of our size to be able to do something like this.
Yeah, and you make a good point too. We've talked about the having multiple ways of getting warnings, and that you shouldn't rely on any one. For those that follow us on social media and get their warning information and so forth from there, thank you. We appreciate that. But there's gonna come a time when IT will fail or something will happen, and you shouldn't just have one source of that information. So you need to have a weather radio in your house that's got a battery backup. Those are still sounding on a county basis, but it's certainly better than nothing. Many people have smartphone apps. We encourage people to go and check out our MemphisWeather.net app and get Stormwatch Plus on there, which is going to pinpoint those warnings right down to your latitude and longitude and just sound that warning if you're within the polygon. And that's certainly a way that a lot of people are getting that information, and if it's not ours, somebody else's get that information too. But when you've got these multiple ways and your phone doesn't go off, but you're hearing the siren, now all of a sudden there's a point of confusion, and am I in it, am I not in it? Obviously, if you're not sure, it's best to go ahead and take action, but it's best to know exactly what's going on, where the storms are moving, and are they coming into your area. So to get all of this in line, the next step is the NOAA weather radios, and I really would like to see some movement on that by the Weather Service from a national perspective, from a national level, not at the local level. This is a national topic, for them to be able to start programming, sending the signals in a way that they can at least sectorize the counties, whether it's northeast, southwest, northwest, southeast, whatever. And the weather radios, they can pick up certain codes right now based on what county you're in and so forth. So it's really not a big step for the equipment that the consumer has on their end to be able to do that. It's the reception of that information from the Weather Service, and that really needs to be done. But in the meantime, we've got these other ways of doing it, and I think this is a good step in the right direction. So kind of along those same lines in the severe weather realm, also want to talk a little bit about some changes that the Storm Prediction Center is going to be making. And we have actually blogged about this earlier this year on changes to the severe weather outlook categories that the SPC uses. They are in Norman, Oklahoma, and they are the issuers of the day 1 and day 2, day 3, so forth, severe weather risk areas. They issue all of the tornado watches and severe thunderstorm watches for the nation. The warnings are handled at the local level, but all of the watch boxes, which means that conditions are favorable and be prepared if necessary to take action, those all come from a central center out there in Norman called the Storm Prediction Center. And we're used to seeing slight, moderate, high risk days, which basically is kind of a tiered system for the threat level for that day for severe weather. And that's been in a slight, moderate, high risk kind of tiered breakdown for many, many years. There's been a lot of talk about that, and there's been a lot, again, of social science coming into that, and it's great to be able to tell people there's a slight risk, but what does that mean to the person who is not a meteorologist or a weather geek like we are? What does that mean to that person? And they've found through these studies that there could be some more clarification made that would hopefully help the public. So the change that they're making, that we blogged about before, and I have just posted an updated blog last night on it, is going to be made October 22nd, and they're going to take this 3-tiered system to a 5-tiered system, and it's going to be basically they're going to kind of break these down a little bit more to try and provide a little bit better delineation between especially in the slight risk area. Slight risk has meant many different things in the past. It can mean single cell that might produce a tornado. It can mean a squall line with a borderline risk of severe weather. It means a lot of different things. And so they're actually going to kind of break that down, and I'm going to screen share here again into the new categories. Over here on the right is the, as of October 22nd, these are the categories that will be used. Everything we've seen up to this point has been here on the left. So general basically means that there's a general risk of severe thunderstorms, not severe thunderstorms, but that there's a risk of thunderstorms, but not severe. And then we've had this slight risk and a moderate risk and a high risk. And basically when you get to moderate or high, you're talking about pretty big outbreaks of severe weather possible. High risk is tornadic weather expected. the new categories are basically going to take this general risk and break it down just a little bit. So they're adding a marginal risk, which is basically on the low end of slight. And if you've looked at the SPC website in the past and seen the words "see text" on the map, which basically says there's a very low chance of severe weather here, and go check our discussion to see what we're talking about for that area, and most of that is in meteorological jargon, and so it really is not necessarily all that useful to the general public. That C text area is going to be replaced by what's called a marginal risk. Then we'll have the slight risk, which will stay in place, and then on the upper end of the slight risk, days where perhaps there's a higher tornado risk, but it's not quite to a moderate category, they'll use this enhanced risk. And so basically enhanced is short for enhanced slight, and so it is a little bit more severe possibility than a slight risk day, and then moderate and high stay the same. So that's what the breakdown looks like. It is based on the categories that they use are based on the probabilities for tornadoes, wind, and hail on that day. And this is a fairly complicated looking graph, but basically our set of tables here. But if you look at the top table, this is the day one risk outlooks, and going across the top here are the percent chances of tornadoes, wind, and hail. So in other words, if I go over and there is a 5% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of me on day one, they call that a slight risk. If it is a 10% chance in the new categories, it's going to be an enhanced risk. So these are basically, they take these and say, what is the chance of high wind, 58 miles an hour or higher, chance of 1 inch hail or larger, and the chance of a tornado, and then they line that up with what category they're going to issue. Most folks will not have to worry about looking at those set of categories. It's the slight, moderate, high, and then the new marginal and enhanced that are in there. It seems like it's may introduce a little bit more confusion. I know some TV stations, will use some of their own language and so forth to go with these. We're definitely in the education business, and so we are going to be making sure that when one of these comes out for our area, we will describe what that is and where it is on the scale. But we're going to toy around with some other ideas. One of them that I have is possibly using like a 1 through 5 rating, similar to what they do for tornadoes and hurricanes, the Saffir-Simpson scale and the enhanced Fujita scale, and perhaps aligning the numbers with the categories. So, a marginal risk maybe a 1, and a slight risk a 2, an enhanced risk a 3, and so forth, just to help and educate people on, how high is my risk that day. So I'm interested in what people think. I'm interested in what the panel thinks. And I'm interested if you're watching and what you think too. So if you've got comments on this, feel free to send us a tweet, WXChat, put the WXChat hashtag on there, or you can drop them in the comments on our Google Plus page or MWN page that you're watching there. And interested in what you think too. So guys, what are your thoughts?
Not
all at once.
Exactly. I'm in favor. I like the proposed changes. I just wish they had chosen something else besides slight. Because to me, slight is not really that much of a chance. But yet you go back and look at some of these, big tornadoes in history, and some of these started with a slight risk. I want to say and this is only weather geeks would know this one, but the Gerald, Texas F5, I think, was a slight risk day, and that pretty much wiped out an entire subdivision there. So slight, I'm not a huge fan of that, but I do like the enhanced moderate high level. I think that's good. Just wish they maybe said elevated instead of slight, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I think, Daniel, you bring up a great point, because, I'm going on memory here, but I want to say that Joplin, Missouri was a slight day as well. And, the problem I have with it is the general public already gets confused because we don't, Eric, you said it best, TV stations kind of use their own jargon. We use, we talk about it amongst ourselves or whatever. We use our own jargon. But then you throw in now, instead of just 4 categories, I told Daniel in the chat, I don't know if I hate C-text or slight more. I'm not sure which one of those two things I hate more. But I just think less, this is a case where less is more. And, I agree, slight needs to go, maybe enhanced or elevated is a good word. And I just worry that this is going to cause a lot of confusion and again, as Daniel said, folks are going to let their guard down when we've had several of our worst severe weather days have been slight risk. And, folks see the word slight, and, if you tell me there's a slight chance of rain tomorrow, I'm not taking an umbrella with me. But if you say there's an elevated chance of rain tomorrow, I'm probably going to take my umbrella. So I just worry about that. And I think your idea, Eric, for a numerical system, even if it's not an official SPC thing, is fantastic because people can understand a risk of 1 to 5 because we all understand that an EF5 tornado is worse than an EF2 or a Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale is worse than a 1 or a 2. So I wish that would have maybe come into play, but I understand there's a lot more than the SPC and NWS in general. They have a lot more consumers than just the general public. I know that sounds odd, but you know this probably better than anybody, Eric. They, aviation is one of their charges, and you can't just oversimplify things for the public. It's like the whole why do they use Z time on their outlooks when I have to get out the calculator to figure out Z time even myself. So I'm just not in favor of adding more categories and more words and more verbiage because then people, again, the confusion I think sets in.
Yeah, and I think using a numerical system or something like that, if we do something like that, we're certainly not going to get away from the wording that that SPC is using, because I think that's what people are going to see. The graphics that are being put up and shared on social media and so forth are going to have that wording in it. But if you don't have the legend next to you with the 5 different colors on it and the names of those categories, it could be hard to know. Well, I'm in a marginal today. Is that worse or better than a slight? And I agree with both of you. Slight risk. I've seen a lot of commentary about we should have just gotten rid of that altogether. And I think what they're trying to do is maybe take this one step at a time and add some additional thresholds in there, and then maybe at some point that slight goes away and they end up with a 4-category system by just dropping it or using elevated or whatever. I'm not sure. Would love to have one of those guys come on and chat with us about that sometime and kind of go into the details of how that works.
Yeah, one thing that we all have to remember, and this includes us, is at the end of the day, these folks are scientists, and science, the thing about science is has a very specific set of footprints and a very specific way of doing things, and we won't get into the Hurricane Sandy, whether or not it was a hurricane or not, but technically by their definition it was not. So that's something that we all have to do a good job of remembering, is that they have to work within guidelines, and these are the guidelines that have been established, and it's not, everybody knows the federal government, of which the National Weather Service is part. Nobody does anything quickly, so it's a work in progress, and I just think it's important for all of us to remember that.
Patrick or William, have you guys had any conversations about severe weather and the way that this is communicated to the public in any of your classes down there in Mississippi State, or any discussions in weather groups or anything you're part of? Just wondering what you guys think.
I'm not hearing Patrick. We've talked about it a bit in some of my classes, and it's kind of mixed opinions on whether or not it's more clear or more confusing. It all depends on if you understand the information that's being put to you to begin with. I think a lot of times people forget that all it is really a risk. So even if it is just a slight risk, it's still a risk, and if it hits your town, then you're not going to care if it was a slight or a high or whatever. So, I mean, ultimately it's just a risk, and in any of those situations, you have to be prepared for severe weather, but at least if there's a higher risk on a particular day. And I think it does a good job of breaking down the slight risk better with the 2 added categories. Because a lot of times it's just a slight risk day, probably more than moderates or highs, because those are more rare to be issued. So I think it just helps clarify the risks on those days.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I was going to say that at least for the C text part, I like that they replaced that with an actual graphic, so you can see the area instead of having to read through the text. They kind of guess what area they're talking about.
Yeah, that will help a lot, because that C text, you're right, it's just kind of placed out there in the middle of the space, and you don't really know exactly what areas they're talking about unless you go in and look at the probabilities of each of the different tornado risk and the wind risk and the hail risk and so forth.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to share one more thing. Oh, who's speaking?
I've got one more little thing to add that I thought of.
Sure.
Just going through some projects and weather classes too, you don't really realize, even as a meteorologist, how often the SPC is even completely wrong. There will be severe weather reports in areas that didn't even have the C text, let alone any categorical risk. So, I mean, it's not like they're always going to get it 100% right. So, just something to be aware of.
Yeah, just like we don't always get the forecast high right for the day. I mean, they're looking at a national perspective and trying to pick out the areas where the greatest risk is, and trying to tier those and assign probabilities to those based on the various model graphics and so forth they're using, and how many models are saying the same thing, which would lend higher credence to a solution and higher probabilities. So.
Hey, Eric, do you guys use those much in aviation as far as just the SPC outlook? I mean, are you using those, for work purposes?
From a flying perspective, not really. I mean, we're looking for areas of obviously areas of convection and areas of thunderstorms. But once you get tops of thunderstorms up to 35,000, whether it's severe or not, we're not flying through them anyway. So whether it's a slight risk or a high risk, I mean, I guess it gives us a little bit better idea of more really from a ground perspective, with the assets on the ground and where your facilities are on the ground, and what kind of risk they are for, than actually the flying public or the flying boxes or whatever you've got. Because like I said, if a top is of a thunderstorm is at 50,000 feet, if it's severe and has 3-inch hail or severe and has 1-inch hail, it doesn't matter, because we're flying around it. So good question though. I want to share an example of how this would look on a particular day. This was an example that SPC put out, and let's see, did I do this right? Can you guys see that? I think you're seeing multiple screens. There we go. This was from May 24th, 2011. So this was just a couple of days before or actually just a little bit after the April 27th that everybody remembers in the southeast. But this was a high risk on the plains, out in the plains, and tornadoes came out of this. A lot of severe weather. This was what the actual outlook looked like for May 24th, and I think I can click and go to the next one. This is what it would look like on the new with the new scale. So you see the moderate and high are the same, but here's a large area of enhanced that was all slight risk before. So you see the massive slight risk. Let's see if I can go back. Yeah. The slight risk area extends from the Atlantic Ocean all the way into the plains. It's just a massive area, and there's really no delineation in there between, where is the higher risk in that slight risk, and by using the new scale, you'll see that there's that enhanced risk, or the zone right there through the kind of the Tennessee Valley into the Carolinas and Virginia, where it was a little bit higher risk than the general slight risk, I'll say. And then the marginal risk goes up into the northeast, where you don't even have any idea that the northeast is under any threat of severe weather there, other than just a general thunderstorm risk. So I think that definitely kind of it draws your attention. I think it highlights the areas that have a severe weather threat a little bit better, but there's going to definitely be some education involved in getting this to be understood by the general public. So.
And Eric, don't you think that will help clarify those run-of-the-mill spring severe weather events? Obviously, if it's a moderate or a high risk, that's hopefully fairly straightforward. But for a typical April event here in Memphis, where the cold front's coming in, slight risk versus enhanced, to me that will make it a little more clear for what to expect. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think the main difference, if I'm not mistaken, between the slight and the enhanced risk is the tornado probabilities. And so in the past, if you've got a squall line coming through and there's very, very low chance of a tornado happening with that, the slight risk handled it. But if you get, a broken line of supercells that comes through with that cold front, where your tornado probabilities are a little bit higher, it was also called a slight risk. And you really didn't know the difference between those. And I think as that tornado probability goes up to that 10% range, it's going to be an enhanced risk. So, I think the higher the chance of supercells in these slight risk days, the more likely you're going to be to see enhanced risk. And I think that will mean something, especially the wording. That word "enhanced" I think is going to be perceived by the public much better than the slight risk. Because, like John said, if I say there's a slight risk, a slight chance of rain today, I'm not taking my umbrella. That's a 20% chance, and we'll most likely, since we got the dome over the top, we're not going to get any rain anyway. But a slight risk is not the same as a slight chance, and that needs to be cleared up. So, all right. Do you guys have any other thoughts, or are there any questions out there that folks are bringing in that they have? I'm not seeing anything. If not, I want to take just a couple of minutes here to before we wrap up. We're going to definitely cut this off at an hour, if not just a little bit quicker. But last few minutes for those who haven't heard or seen on Twitter or Facebook last night, we watch a show called Weather Brains. It's a netcast very similar to this that is every Monday night with several broadcast and other meteorologists from around the nation that are on that. It's on Monday nights, and last night's guest was none other than Memphis legend Dave Brown, and it's the first time he's been a guest on there, and watched it with great interest. He spent a good long time kind of recounting his years in broadcast. This is his 37th year on WMC, 52 years in broadcast altogether, and he really had some interesting tales and so forth to relay about how he, when he started off in the 70s, about using the magnetic sun on the board that they painted so that it would stick, and the U.S. map, and how that's moved into using the computers and so forth, and just relaying a lot of his kind of his time moving forward, and the development of new radars and the technology that they've got available to them now. So it was a really, really interesting conversation with him. If you're interested in listening to that, if you're a fan of Dave Brown, I invite you to go to weatherbrains.com. Right at the top is the video from last night on YouTube. About 20 or 25 minutes in is when he starts his conversation with him, and it lasts about 45 minutes. But an interesting thing right near the end is that he basically announced his pending retirement, and that in a couple of weeks or so, and I'm just taking these words straight from what he said last night, within a couple of weeks he will be cutting back his hours significantly at WMC. He'll be doing the 6 p.m. newscast only, and turning over the other newscasts to the other folks there. And then he said he's got about a year left. He expects he'll be there another year, and then fully retiring. So my first thought was, you go, Dave. Congratulations on just a exemplary career. I know him personally. He's been a part of the local chapter of the AMS that I belong to and am a past president of. So I have known him for many years, personally and professionally. As genuine a guy as you will find out there, and really works hard to keep everybody safe. The comments that I received back last night after I tweeted that out after Weather Brains were along the same lines, that no, Dave can't retire. He's the calm in the storm. When the storms are out there, I've got WMC on. So certainly in the weather world, in the professional wrestling world in Memphis, he's a legend, and so many congrats to him. We'll look forward to seeing him, of course, on the 6 p.m. newscast for for a while yet. They have hired a new meteorologist at WMC that will do the noon and 4 broadcasts. He is Spencer Delton, I think, from WAAY in Huntsville. So he's going to be coming up here, and according to his Twitter feed and Facebook, it looks like he's making a move this weekend. So I don't know if he'll be on next week, but Spencer will be joining the team to pick up a couple of those, and then you got Ron and Tim Van Horn that will still be there as well. So congratulations to Dave. Look forward to chatting with him more about that. But he's definitely one that that we associate with weather in the Memphis community for a couple of generations now.
Yeah, I had somebody tell me today that they couldn't believe it's only been 37 years. It seems like Dave would have been at the signing of the city's charter when we got chartered as a city. And you touched on the wrestling, and a lot of people joke about it, Eric, but it's really difficult to fathom today that someone could be a professional wrestling announcer and could still have the credibility within the public that Dave Brown has. And I think that speaks to what you said earlier about him being such a genuine man and such a good man, and somebody who, frankly, probably could have left this market numerous times but chose not to. Nobody in this market deserves to retire on their own terms more than Dave Brown does. So congratulations to Dave, although that's a part of my childhood that will be going away from TV now.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought it was interesting to hear him talk about last night the changes in technology, like you said, from the magnetic board to the black and white radar to the Lightning 5 Live. I remember that rudimentary lightning map, and now we've got million-watt radar. And he's seen a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah, he certainly has.
And I've always liked his candor. He's always been a guy that when and not to mention any other stations or anything, but even with the Weather Service, he's been very. The Weather Service used to do, and they still do it occasionally, but they used to issue, especially with severe thunderstorms, these huge 15-county long thunderstorm warnings when a line would be moving through, and Dave always, don't understand why they're doing this. I don't see it. And, I think he's been an effect of real change in the weather community in general of, he is that calm voice in the storm. He is the one who never, he doesn't scream, he doesn't yell. He's that calm in the storm.
Yeah, absolutely. He did get asked the question last night about the rumor that's been around for apparently 37 years. Most people have heard different variations on it, but he was asked whether or not anybody has ever physically assaulted him on basis of a bad forecast, and he said that that actually was a very good thing for him. It has helped his career immensely, and it is absolutely not true. So straight from the horse's mouth, that's basically what happened is there was a mental patient of some sort back in, I think, 77, he said, that got into the TV station when there wasn't the security like we see now getting into studios and so forth. And that person was not there because of a bad forecast. It was not a farmer that didn't get rain when it was promised or whatever. But he came in and caused a ruckus there, and apparently did make some contact with Dave Brown, but it wasn't because he was going after Dave Brown. It was just because of the situation that unfolded there. So he actually made a second appearance at the studio a month later, and they were able to call the police and have that situation basically diffused and send the guy back to the mental hospital. But he was not punched because of a bad forecast. So there goes that rumor. That can go along the sidelines with the pyramid and the bluffs and all the other good rumors of myths we got here on Memphis. And you're right, Daniel. That is why I will not forecast snow, because I don't want anyone to find out where I live and come after me when their school is not canceled the next morning. But
that's all right, Procius. I know where you live. I'm coming for you. But cool. The funny thing about the Dave rumor, real quick, is you could ask 100 people over the age of 40 in Memphis, and 97 of them will swear that they saw that happen on live television.
And what they really were watching was Saturday morning wrestling, and somebody swinging a chair. And my guess is the wrestlers were probably paying no attention to the forecast from Friday nights, and it had nothing to do with that. But yeah, it was. He did kind of touch on the ability to basically carry on two careers, 35 years in broadcasting for wrestling, and decades in the weather realm as well, and he said that is not something that you would be able to do today. That era is bygone, and it's just, it would be impossible to be able to pull that off today for many different reasons. So anyway,
I just
kudos
want
and
to
tip.
jump in for a second, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah.
I just wanted to say, outside of weather, I really appreciate what he did with the community, where it seems like every single year I think he went to every single high school and talked to the graduate or the senior class about, because of his daughter and what happened to her.
Yep, he came to my school my senior year.
Right. I'll just never forget him coming there and talking to everyone.
Yeah, definitely has his heart in that direction as well, and rightfully so. And I know he's looking forward to continuing that, and that'll be a passion of his as long as he's around, I know. Yep, definitely going to be a change in the Memphis weather community as far as the broadcast is concerned. But congratulations to him, and a tip of the hat from all of us. So, does anybody else have anything they want to wrap up with? I'll start down on the far end there. Daniel, got any parting comments?
I really hope it does not get as hot as you think, because, as we said before, I've got a wife who is 16 days away from having our third daughter, and the cooler it is, the better it will be.
She's had a really nice summer to do that, to carry that baby around. So if she can make it through the next week, then you guys should be good. Congratulations to you also.
Thank you.
John?
Just I agree with Daniel that I hope it doesn't get as hot, because I'm going camping in 2 weeks, so that's the main reason. But then Tiger football, the first game is August 30th, and so I hope it kind of cools down then. But just want everybody to be safe and be careful over the next couple of weeks, and don't, we've been cool so much this summer that I don't want anybody to suffer from heat. And please check your back seat before you get out of the car. I mean, like you said earlier, Eric, one's too many, but just take that extra minute to look back there, and pets, kids, things like that. Just don't leave them in the car. Even if I'm just running in the store for 5 minutes, that's entirely too long. So just make sure and check on your neighbors, especially folks that don't have air conditioning, things like that. It's important to just, let's treat each other, let's help each other, and just remember, like you said, September's right around the corner. Cooler weather is coming.
Yep, and if you happen to leave a child in the back seat, it is now legal for them to bust your window and rescue that child. So you may also, even if everything is fine in the car, you're going to be paying for a new window in your car too, and probably get some sort of a little award from the police department or the fire department too. Patrick or William, you guys got anything to close out tonight?
Well, since I was having technical difficulties earlier, to speak on my winter blog just slightly, I found one of the more interesting things about that was that our two biggest snowfalls have come in mid to late March, which I would have expected to be more in January or February than mid-late March, after we have warm-ups into the 60s. So I didn't want to spur a whole new conversation on that, but I just wanted to throw that out there so we have some mention of snow.
Great. Yeah, we did touch on that when you checked out. Apologize for your difficulties tonight, but yeah, that was one of the things we talked about. And the setup here requires a certain amount of moisture to be able to get that much snow. And typically in January, the atmosphere is just a little bit too dry to produce that. So once we start getting that moisture in the very early spring, when we can still get some cold blasts, that's usually when we get those big snows. So thanks for joining us tonight, Patrick. Appreciate it. Appreciate your efforts all along. William?
That's it for me, but I thought it was a really good discussion tonight, lots of topics, but excited for the heat to be over more than anything. So
yeah.
I'm ready for fall.
All right, good luck to both you and Patrick this fall in your classes, and learning a little more meteorology. We'll have you guys on the blog, and of course you'll be able to find them on Twitter and Facebook. We are MemphisWeather1 on Twitter, MemphisWeather.net on Facebook, Google+, YouTube, Vine, SoundCloud, and coming soon to Instagram. We're everywhere you are. Appreciate you joining in tonight. Make sure you check out the MemphisWeather.net app in iTunes and on Google Play, and we'll look forward to doing one of these again another time. And that's all we got for tonight. So thanks for joining us. Have a good night.